Justin A.W. Blair here. I'm a writer. I'm a painter. I perform on YouTube on occasion. A Laker. I locken on YouTube. What's this man talking about? It sounds like gibberish. No. No, it is a mystery which I shall leave for the end of this video. What is the connection between the LA Lakers, early modern Shakespearean English, and this little bit of trivia from Patrick Stuart's autobiography, Make It So, which is the subject of today's video. Now, I do not have a copy of it here to show you, as I usually do, because I decided to listen to it on audiobook. I've been doing a lot of driving lately. I thought, peruse through some of the Star Trek audiobooks that were available, and I settled upon this, which is, strictly speaking, not a Star Trek book. However, Patrick Stuart, of course, the actor who played Picard, a fan favorite and a favorite of mine, and a decent old chap. Okay, let's start out with that, because there's good and bad, right? There's the good and the bad. And I don't want to spend time summarizing the good and the bad for you in this video. That is not what I'm going to do. I'm just distracted here, making sure I'm not knocking the camera to and fro about. Bring the reality to you people on my YouTube channel. First, I'd like to begin with, I don't know if you can see that. It's the Picard maneuver. What's the Picard maneuver? Well, I got this audiobook. Got hair in my face. Totally unacceptable. Bringing reality. This is what we call method acting. Okay, in the business. I don't like long commercials in the middle of a YouTube video, so I'll get to the point quick. My own novel, written by me, Justin A.W. Blair, entitled The Haunt on the Island of Esmer, is out, available on Amazon. You can buy it in ebook or paperback format. It is inspired by Malazan, A Song of Ice and Fire, and The Black Company. Epic novels in that vein. Take a moment, check it out. I expected a mass of Star Trek trivia. That's what I hoped for, you know? Inside scoop of what's going on with the next generation, from straight from the horse's mouth, the horse being Patrick Stuart. However, I do have to give you one of the bad things about this book right off the start, because you may have found this video thinking perhaps I will read this autobiography in order to learn more about Star Trek because you love it. Well, the story of, I'm going to call him Picard, not Picard, Patrick Stewart's involvement in Star Trek does not occur until chapter 16 in this book, the very end of chapter 15, chapter 16 really. And it only lasts for a couple of chapters, perhaps an hour and a half of this audiobook, which I think is around 16 to 18 hours long. Now, that is bad if you like Star Trek like me, and if you purchase this book looking for lore. The Picard maneuver, by the way, is this little thing, which I actually do sometimes as well, because I bought this uniform online from eBay. It's a little tight. It's tight around my brawny chest. Now, Picard had the same problem. Why? Because Roddenberry, being kind of a weird dude, he wanted everybody's uniforms to be very tight, very form-fitting. One-piece uniforms. Now, this is not a one-piece. You're not going to see what's below the desk here. But it's not a one-piece, I assure you, and I will, you're just going to have to take my word on that. But he was too tight. And so Jean-Luc Stewart basically always had to pull down his uniform. Now, I think that happened later, because in the contract that they were able to negotiate after season 2, I think, when they changed the uniforms, he was able to get the uniforms changed. I still think that was a problem, maybe in the later uniforms. Whatever. That's the Picard maneuver. I know you crave trivia, Star Trek fans. Don't we all? I, too, craved Star Trek trivia. Scant on the details here of Trek. So, if you're looking to purchase this for that and that alone, this is not a recommendation for me, unfortunately. Again, I'm not going to summarize this book. It's the life of a man who grew up in a working class environment, rather impoverished during World War II in the north of England. That's actually a good part of this book. The description of his early life, the setting of where Stuart grew up, the family dynamics, which were fraught and somewhat miserable, but he had a wonderful relationship with his mother and a much more difficult relationship with his father. It's intense listening and or reading. It's delicate. It's nuanced. It's well done. It's a fine story, frankly. It's probably the best part of this book. Picard describing how he grew up, his school situation, his friends, and particularly the abusive relationship between his father, who had been, I think, rather traumatized by his involvement in war, towards his mother. It was truly a compassionate, well thought out, not oversimplified story of how he grew up, and I respect it, and I thought it was great. It was the best part of this book by far. Because what ends up happening is the following, and it made me think, now I'm going to go off on a tangent, because again, there's not a lot I'm going to say specifically about this book, and this isn't directed towards Stuart exactly, but Patrick Stuart is kind of just a good dude. He's just kind of a good guy. He had a tough childhood. He overcame it. He became very good at what he did, which was acting on the stage, theater in particular. He worked hard. He made small successes one after another. Eventually became relatively successful, though didn't really hit the big time until his mid-40s, I think, or maybe early 40s, when he finally got a role in Star Trek: The Next Generation, which, and I will tell a small story here from the autobiography, was kind of just a twist of fate. He was doing I think a reading for something at whatever universities in Los Angeles, UCLA, I guess. A friend asked him to do a reading there, and said he'd pay him like $100, I think, and buy him dinner. And he was in LA, so he did it. And someone related to the Star Trek reboot, it's not a reboot, the development of TNG, saw him there, and that ended up, after quite a few different trials and tribulations, ended up in him getting the role as Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek: The Next Generation. So there are little things here and there in this about Star Trek. Again, the problem is that this is not about Star Trek, and it's about his life, and he is an older man. He wants to tell his story about his life, and that is what he does. But the thing is, it made me think, because, and again, I don't want to, this is nothing negative about Stuart himself. He seems like a very decent person for the most part. He seems honest. The only thing that's really maybe lamentable is his difficulties with marriage. He's pretty honest about it and open in the autobiography, explains it, feels bad about it. He seems like kind of a nice guy. Actors are rather boring. This is an insight, which I think I've known deep within my gut for a long time. People often wonder and ask themselves, why do actors just kind of always mouth platitudes when they're being interviewed? The vast majority of them do. And what you do see here is the psychology of an actor in Stuart. He is an actor, after all, a professional. There is something about the psychology of an actor that craves acceptance at every level. But there really is, that if you really think about what they're doing, they're constantly trying out. They're constantly trying to impress someone just above them in a hierarchy, whether that be a casting director, or then on the set, if they have the job, a director or a producer. Ultimately, they're trying to get the love and regard of a broader audience, a mass audience, and that either creates a certain type of person or favors a certain type of person, the type of person who will basically just mouth platitudes, that will just, whatever is in vogue at the time, they are going to more or less go along with that, because actors seem like very frightened individuals. They seem like very frightened creatures. They're always name dropping one another. There is a kind of strange. Look, I haven't listened to a lot of actors' biographies. I haven't read a lot of actors' biographies. I read a Marlon Brando, I think, wrote an autobiography. I read that like 20 years ago or something. Other than that, I don't know much about these people, these actors. But it is something that, while Stuart, again, a good man, I think, in many ways, displays in himself and in the stories about other actors a very serious lack. It's almost like they're not quite fully themselves unless they are surrounded by applause, if that makes sense. And that makes them terrible, terrible people to listen to about anything other than acting. Anyone who ever listens to an actor talk about anything besides acting is a fool. Never do it. That's my advice to you. Okay, what else? Look, this book would actually be best for maybe other actors, unfortunately, which I don't think are going to want to take my advice now that I've just said that they're terrible people. They're not really terrible people. Again, there's a kind of childlike aspect to them. I don't know. It's not my way. It's not what I like, but I'm not an actor. Yeah, the bad is that it gets boring. Like there's a lot of details about things I simply just don't care about. I like Shakespeare. I'm no expert. So I enjoyed hearing a little bit about that, about the acting roles, though I didn't get specific about the challenges of particular roles. I think he struggled with Macbeth somewhat. He supposedly picked up a little bit of a drinking habit, but he's kind of like, it was just like 3 drinks a night or whatever, and I took a nap in the afternoon. It's, again, like, this is not the story of a particularly wild or damaged. This is not the story of a man who seemingly has a lot of problems, or rather, he had problems, he overcame them, and then the rest of his life seems like basically just success after success after success. Again, barring, perhaps, I think he would agree, the marriage situation, which I'm not going to get into, it doesn't matter. I didn't learn anything new about Star Trek from this, and that's kind of what I bought it for. That's okay. You know what? That's on me. Stuart didn't write a book saying, hey, this is about Star Trek. Granted, it's called Make It So kind of thought maybe there'd be a little bit more there in the Star Trek story, but hey, we got to sell books. It's fine. I don't give a shit about the X-Men. I've never watched it. I don't care about it. The last couple chapters, I guess he was in the X-Men. Don't know. If you care about that, you're gay. Make It So. I wish I could make it so that there was more Star Trek in this book. But again, hey, this is the story of a man's life. He is an older man. He's in his 80s. You can hear it in his voice. He makes reference to that himself, that his voice is getting older. You can tell probably theater acting and getting to that age probably makes a big strain on a person's voice, I would assume. I don't know. I told you I would tell you about the LA Lakers. So early on in the book, again, the strongest part of the book, really, we get a little bit of talk on the dialects of Northern England, which I'm a word bird, as I've told you before. They used to call me the wordy bird. It was a nickname they gave me back in school. And I really enjoy that kind of stuff. Etymology, the history of words. I love words, all right? He says that there in Shakespearean times, the word laker was a word for a player. Now, that is a player in the sense of a player on the stage, a theater, an actor, right? Somehow this is connected to the LA Lakers, though. Or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm insane. I made the connection. Because I thought to myself, the LA Lakers, there's no lakes. There are no lakes that I know of in Los Angeles. I'm not some geography specialist of Los Angeles, but I don't think there are lakes there, right? None that are notable. Unlike Utah, Salt Lake, right? You'd think it'd be called not the Utah Jazz, but the Utah Lakers. Makes no sense. Okay, so as you know, listeners, viewers, before I record, I go out and I smoke some nicotine to get hyped up and ready. I drink some tea. I bring you the reality. Sometimes there's tea stains on my tunic, all right? Because I bring the harsh, the gritty reality. That's the kind of actor I am when I act here for you on YouTube. Out on the porch, smoking a cigarette, and thinking Los Angeles Lakers. There's a connection, right? Because Los Angeles, the home of television, movies, players, theater people, right? LA Lakers. So maybe LA Lakers were named after like the LA players, like it's this hidden joke, because people who would know about Shakespeare would know that it used to be called Lakers from the Middle English. I looked up Laken, to play. And then I decided to look it up. And now these days, as you know, when you look something up on the internet in a search engine, you get an AI result. Well, the AI result, it was garbage. It said, there's a guy who announced for the LA Lakers, then he was thought of as the Shakespeare of sports announcing. It's bullshit. Bullshit, I said to myself. Bullshit, I said to myself. And I kept on going. I kept looking, and I said, no. I refused the AI summary, and I refused the first few results. I believe Patrick Stuart, and I will find the truth of this, even though it may have been an imaginary truth made up in my head after mishearing something. Regardless, I plunged on. And I found, yes, no, rather. The Los Angeles Lakers were apparently from Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes or whatever. I don't know, Minnesota. Anyway, a lot of lakes in Minnesota. Can't name any of them. One of them's a Great Lake, maybe. Don't know. There's a lot of them. The land of 10,000 lakes. A bunch of lakes. Anyway, apparently the LA Lakers used to be from Minnesota, and so they kept the Lakers thing. I guess they used to be the Minnesota Lakers, and then they moved to LA, and so they kept the Lakers thing. But my conspiracy theory is no. That's not the truth. The truth is someone, when they named them, or at least when they transferred from Minnesota to Los Angeles, they kept Lakers as an inside joke to those who know their Shakespeare, for those who know their Middle English, their early modern English. The tale I tell is really about this, dear listener, dear viewer, dear watcher. Don't trust the AI. It's a giant nexus of mediocrity. And if you just take what you see at face value, well, that's it for me. You know me, dear listener, dear viewer. You know me, Justin A.W. Blair, a writer, a painter, a man, a Laker. A Laker. All right? I will see you next time. Beam me up. Get me out of here. One last word. Patrick Stuart, God bless his soul. Northern England has a special place in my heart. And despite the fact that this work for me lagged in places, it was read extraordinarily well. Stuart is a wonderful actor, a wonderful voice. He uses it really well in the reading of this book. Though it's very light on Star Trek lore, and you don't get much in terms of behind the scenes insights, there is some of it. Perhaps if you're a hardcore fan, it's useful. All right, that's it. I'll see you next time.